Wave.
We're live.
Hey, we are live. Right?
Nope, we're a little bit behind, right?
Oh, well, that's okay, that delay. Right? Oh, quite a bit behind. That's okay, I mean,
It's a little delayed.
Thank you.
you know why it is that delay?
Oh, we're doing, oh no,
What?
I just realized, I thought we were on schedule,
Oh,
but we're not.
so we're good?
I think so.
Okay.
It's still a little bit behind them, Dave. Why aren't we live?
Well, it's
It's
just
still
that
gonna be-
delay,
okay.
I think.
Anything you want to tell the people of Wilbraham?
Mm.
Okay, so I'm going to take some pictures. All right. You want me to take them of this too?
Sure.
Use that. And then let's take
And then next is,
I got it, Dave. You don't have to go under.
oh, okay.
I
Can't
just don't
get it
want-
any closer,
Yeah, I
so.
just don't want it to
I
get
hate you
undone.
crawling around.
That would not be good. So this first. And then. Okay. All right, and then the box.
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Oh, because we're not sitting there. I was like, where are we? Dave, do me a favor and
You're
go
not
back.
on?
Well, do me a favor and go back where we were sitting. No, it's good. It's live.
Oh, okay, oh, good.
I just got nervous thinking it was,
Oh, I understand.
again,
Yeah.
once again.
So then you want one more picture, Aaron, I think?
Oh, yes.
Just to show this end of the cable, right?
Yep. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
That's just
And
the
that,
idea.
just
that-
those two, right? That was just the
Well,
one, actually,
actually just
right?
the one,
Just
yeah,
the one.
yeah,
Okay. The one
yeah.
on
So
the
you
left.
followed from the camera all the way,
And it's,
to the-
right,
so that's good.
that is
Excellent.
good. Okay. Okay, let's see if Katie's come on. Oh, she has not come on.
I'm thinking last meeting, somebody asked that I turn off some of the info on the camera, right?
Oh, yes, he said, Bill Powers said, hey, can Dave, remember there was something, you're right, Bill Powers.
Let's see, I think that was the
Oh,
LCD.
Dave. I did put you here, but, and this is, I've got this thing for your computer. This is, I didn't know if you do want a binder for this. This is the, this is how Mom split it up. I just, it's so organized. He split it up into current policies, then the policies with the markups, and then the MASC policies.
Oh my gosh, how's this guy do it?
I know. And was Dave's video? Dave
I
had a video?
haven't, I
but
haven't even
he
done
had a
it yet.
video, thankfully.
I've been over at,
Oh,
Sewell
Sewell's,
Road with
everything-
Donna.
Oh, for Donna.
Yes,
You told me
yes.
that before. I forgot.
Yes.
Here is
So-
an extension cord if you need it.
Oh, I have it, I'm okay, I just, I had to wait for buses, the buses
Oh
were
my
late.
gosh, how were they today? I didn't get any,
Ah.
I didn't
Bus
get any
31
calls.
Bus 31 just come at 3:28.
Bus 28, bus what?
Bus 31.
Bus 31.
Yeah.
I just text that to myself. Bus 31 was late yesterday, 55.
Yeah. And I called the
Oh,
office.
you know what? That is a bummer because I didn't know about that, Mary. Bus 31.
Yeah, they didn't come until 3:28, and then 4 girls didn't hear bus 18 called. So I had to call their parents, they didn't know their parents' cell phone numbers, so you have to look it up. Oh my God, these kids have got to learn, they've got to learn their kids,
Oh, here's your
their parent, thank you, their parents'
I know they
cell
don't know
phone
it.
numbers.
They don't know it. We are on, Mary.
Okay, let me just look at this sign by Erin.
If we mark it at the high school, we'll take it. If we leave, you know, what's his name? I don't.
So I got even less on the screen now than before, so that's better, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's, somehow they saw it, right?
Right,
Because he was at home saying,
Oh, okay.
is there a way to turn off the statistics from his camera? They are overlaid onto the video.
yep,
So,
so that's good. I think.
Dave is checking. Oh, I see he got it. Much better.
Oh, he just said that now?
No, that's from the other
Oh,
day.
okay.
No,
Oh,
he's
okay.
off today.
Okay,
Green Meadows just got a box that's clearly marked Stony Hill.
pigging out on snacks.
It's clearly marked.
What's for dinner? What'd you decide?
I'm gonna go to Papumi's on after this meeting,
Good idea.
but she,
Can you call it in before, Dave?
yeah,
So it's
I
ready?
will have to, yeah.
Call it now.
But I was supposed to do something else.
I would have wanted to.
Okay. I'm thinking an hour and a half is the lawyer has to go at 5:15. She has to do something, so
Right, oh.
hopefully
Okay.
that'll be a stop for us.
Well,
but-
she's gonna be home a little bit late tonight, so that she worked out anyway, so.
Very good. How nice to have dinner when you get home. It's
Yeah,
kind of
no,
nice.
no.
That's kind of nice. Okay, I know, right from,
How's your day going?
good. Dave and I have been here since about 9:30. Getting ready. So,
Are you serious?
he literally came at 9:30. We went over notes.
We went home, oh, I went home.
He went home, but I'm just saying, he got over here at 9:30, but in doing that, it made us realize the camera, the this, we would have never, if we had started at 3:30, Dave, it would have never happened, so.
No, because we would have been panicking.
Yeah, we would have,
Really? There's that much, huh?
just because it's new to us, I'm sure, Mary, once we
Yeah.
get this going,
Yeah, last meeting was, his name is Bill, right? Had set it up
yes.
beforehand, so we hadn't done it.
Bill,
before.
right, that's what it was, Bill Powers set the whole thing up.
And even then, we had an issue,
Yes,
but we
we
think
did.
we're good.
And he was, you know, it's so hard when you do something, set it up, he's like, all you're gonna do is hit,
Right,
Oh,
On
thanks.
air.
Tell me about it.
and it just
Yeah.
wasn't, you know, it's just never that
Well, and
easy.
sometimes, if it sits for too long, it just cancels itself out.
You're right,
And then you
yep.
gotta, you know how it does that? That's
Yeah.
what happened with, that's what's happening over at Stony Hill with the computer to sign in.
really.
So, oh, it's so annoying. sweet to work her over there.
Oh, she is so sweet.
Mm-hmm. Policy meeting, we have not met in ages.
I know, and it's going to be Michelle Boudreau is the sub for Cheryl Caruana. Maura's here, John's here, and Lisa Marie's here, but Michelle is.
That one and next one. That goes out all over the
Okay. I just,
That's a delay, the audio?
so I just went on to see what's going on.
You're really getting good.
I'm gonna
at
have to
this.
start doing, like the news, the anchor people, when they
Yeah.
have dead air, they do like chatter, they call it,
Right,
you know,
right,
they do
right,
their
right.
little banter, they call it banter.
Yeah.
You would
Um,
be good at that.
It's, well, you know, I worked at Channel 40 and it is harder to do.
You do? You work with him?
I used to, before,
Oh,
when I got out of
right.
college, in sales.
Oh,
Ah,
I didn't know that.
good
But
for
it
you.
was always, you know, it's always harder than it looks just to have some intellectual, like, and not, you know, not sound.
Oh my gosh, look at this.
So,
Current
I
policy,
always just think
amazing.
that's,
Oh, so you want me to leave these folders?
you don't have to, Mary, I did it that way to see if it was easier. That's how he sent it to everybody, so that's how I did it in their binders.
It's fine.
The current policy, HWRSD, then he did the edits, so there's like cross out. And then the model that MASC sends, so you'll see blanks for me. So I just didn't know if you wanted.
This guy is so good.
He's very good.
He's very smart.
Yes.
That's what it
And
is.
he's organized. So anyways, that is how I just followed his lead.
Yeah.
I really don't know enough about the policies in the edit.
Really excludes and statements. Reporter is not gonna be present, you don't think Sarah's not
I
gonna
don't
be?
think Sarah's gonna be.
Okay.
No, I think-
Put this over here. It was a lot different when we first used to do this. I was just sitting there thinking it was about a year ago that you and I first started.
Right.
Remember the first school committee meeting, I walked in, I got there at 5 o'clock because it starts at 6:30. I didn't know anything was going on. And they just hand me a computer.
And literally,
Here you go, use the passwords that you gave me. I'm there, okay, I had no idea what to do. And you were going around, my heart was racing.
I ran because we were doing some last minute things, and I literally ran down the hall with the cart.
I remember that. You ran way faster than me and Al.
Oh,
So
right, because I was thinking, I
She
can't
left
wait
us-
for you.
No, she left us in the dust. I can't believe we're already past our long weekend.
We do have a half day on October 31st for students, not for staff. That's a kindergarten through 12th half day
Hmm.
for students, not for staff. October 31st.
No, somebody will be calling up the school saying, I wasn't aware of it.
And then we actually have Friday the 11th, because that's what Veterans Day falls on Friday, so
Mhm.
that we're off that day.
And there's another day that's voting.
Did we not?
November 8th?
November 7th, I thought it was.
Oh, right,
It's
Mary's right.
voting.
I
7th or 8th?
I think he's right. The 8th, 7th is conferences maybe, Mary, but you're right, they decided they could be open on the 8th
Yeah.
because it's a midterm
I
election.
met Carol at Green Meadows all day Monday. No school on the 8th election.
Okay, election.
And then that same week is Friday. There's no school.
Hmm.
It'd be nice to give the teachers an in-service day.
I know, you're right, it'd be very nice. Okay, you're right, Mary, November 7th is an early release day for conferences. K through 8, and then 8th is no school, conferences and professional development. So you're working the half
Carol.
day? For Carol,
No,
full day? Yeah, you know what, they probably have to have conferences.
they have to have someone monitor the door.
Oh, right. I can't believe it's working. I can't believe this is working.
So much
Well,
better than that
I-
thing behind me. So we still use that?
Yes, just in case that's with this, so, in case I have.
Can you believe all the stuff you learn?
No, I can't, I'm like very technical, there used to be a radio show, AIC used to have it, it was a Greek radio show, you know how they have the Irish and the Greek?
Mm.
And she used, the woman would say, please hold for technical difficulties, my grandson is, do you remember that? It was a Greek program.
Mm.
And he would be in the background, how's that, yeah, is that better? I just feel like that sometimes. Excuse me for technical difficulties.
And we used to have the Polish shows on WICE, you know, the Polish
Yeah.
music.
Mm.
And the Irish channel was on WHYN.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had all kinds of music.
I don't think they still have that. I think a lot of that has stopped. I don't think this whole younger generation doesn't know their heritage.
Well, they
Oh,
could get all the
that's
music
true.
though.
They
you
have
know?
different music.
I see Georgina's coming.
Yeah. She better be joining us.
Yes, we do. I don't know, she's just coming in, maybe signing to hear them, you
Okay.
know, I just saw her come in. No, maybe,
Do you have anybody on Zoom from the school committee meeting?
I had 14.
You had 14, wow, okay. I wonder if we should start keeping track of that somehow. Maybe not put it in minutes, but just keep track of it.
Yeah, 14, even, it gives like first names, name, always now.
Yeah. Sometimes they're
Not the,
Facebook.
yeah.
Good, now that this whole process is over. Yeah. Seriously, oh, work. No?
Crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Thanks for doing this, though. Thanks for doing this. What's that, yeah. Oh, Linda, thank you. No, no kidding, huh? Hey, the other 3 chairs came in.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no
Okay,
kidding,
so
huh?
go ahead and pay that.
Yeah, I'll sign the sheet and send it down.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, hi guys, how are
Hi,
you?
Georgina.
How you
The
doing?
usual crowd.
Yeah.
Would you like a water?
No, actually,
You wanna
I'm
sit at the
so
table?
addicted to, no, that's really good for me. I'm so addicted to bubbly water at this
Oh,
point.
that bubbly water.
Yeah, well, we got a soda stream, so we make it ourselves. The problem is that you over bubble.
Oh, it's so bubbly.
It's so bubbly that any other bubbly water doesn't compare.
It doesn't.
It's not awful. I'm
No.
so spoiled. Hey, you left your
Georgie,
other
thank you,
keyboard down
I
there.
got it
Oh,
today.
okay.
I got it from Georgia. Just, we're streaming, so we are being heard. If anyone
Yeah.
happens to be on, they're gonna hear
Yeah, no
live
problem.
chatter
Right.
from
Yeah,
Wilbraham.
how did it work out? Did it go well?
We'll see. Last meeting worked out okay
Yeah,
after.
once we got the
Yeah,
second
you got a
URL,
Yeah,
That was good. I like, do you have a channel? Did you create a channel?
I've been using I've always had a channel since I started a channel last August to do the school committee meetings.
Yeah.
But Bill Powers is going to make a generic
That's a
HW.
good idea.
It's better than, yeah. And I only
Absolutely.
use it for the school committee, but
Yeah.
it won't show an E anymore, it'll show the HW.
So sometimes I watch the Board of Education, I know I'm a little crazy, but I watch the Board of Education meetings for DESI, right? And because you learn a ton when you look at it, you learn about what's supposed to be happening here as far as there too. So I watch them, they have their own channel, and what's nice about it is when you go to it, if you miss a meeting, you can get to the recordings, and it's just, I like it better, because I can't always get it, the meetings are 9 in the morning.
Oh, I see, yeah, and
Yeah.
that should be, you know, with this YouTube, you should be,
Yeah,
and
you
I
should be
made
able
it
to have a
public.
playlist and,
so
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just did it now on my phone. Just go to YouTube and then do a search HWRSD
and it comes out.
and a whole bunch of choices.
Yeah.
So the one that's current was top of the list.
Yeah. And then if, but once Bill does the channel, you become a subscriber to the channel and you'll always have them,
Mm.
Oh,
which is
okay.
nice. I like that better. You know,
I
I
think-
wish that the town would do it too, because it's just easier than trying to see that posted on the website. I just like to,
in
they're all there on the website, I just like the convenience.
convenience of it, and I think people now, many people use it, so YouTube is an easy platform to get. And Dave posted it on Wilbraham Forum, so if anybody wanted to watch it,
Yeah.
you know, that's where
That's what it
people,
should be.
where people are looking, right?
Yeah, I know, coming into the meetings, everyone's so busy, so I appreciate it being streamed or being there.
And I'm
yeah.
still Zooming just because I, you know, in case something happens, I still have the Zoom as a
I thought
backup.
that was great, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to communicate with you last time.
Right,
So that way you had it.
I like the earlier time.
you know, just the people working, I mean, it's good for us, you're right.
More, here comes more now. She probably gets out at 3:30.
And that's the-
And I know Lisa's running behind, so.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, because she's coming all the way from Avalon.
Oh, that's over the bridge.
Well, always a scary situation. Never easy. It's just,
She's still there.
I think
She's still doing
Oh,
this.
Linda's there until 4.
I'm supposed to get my shingles shot tomorrow, and I had to change it to Friday, and it's like a big ordeal, back and forth, and which CVS has it.
And do you have, do they say you have side effects from that one, or?
You could, our friends of ours did, I didn't. From the first one, it's a double dose one,
Oh,
if you're over 50.
Unfortunately, that would be,
No one wants shingles.
nobody wants it.
Hello.
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 Hey.
Hey, Laura, you're at the head of the class.
Okay. So
We're all live we're live streaming.
Cheryl won't be here, but Michelle is gonna sub for her. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to vote on anything.
Yes.
Lisa's coming, she's just running a little late because she has to get out of school. So that's kind of why I said like 4:15 because she has to get out of her school to get here.
I just said that because you made me think without Michelle, we wouldn't have a quorum.
Well, we
could still do
wouldn't,
it with Lisa, couldn't we?
only if there's 2 of us, we can't. That's why I had Michelle come.
Oh, really?
Because if there's 2 of us, you can't vote. There's no quorum for it. We could still meet and have a discussion, but we couldn't vote on anything.
So you need 100% for the quorum.
Well, we need at least 3 people. That makes a quorum for the subcommittee. At least that's how I understand it or interpreted it. So I think the way, we can still do it as a regular meeting until we do the reorganization, so it stays the same, so similar to how we had to do it with the school committee stuff. I think that's how that works.
Maybe I'll make
Michelle is probably coming
I'm
in,
promoting her to a panelist.
yes, please.
Michelle, can
Hi.
you hear? Okay, just wanted to make sure you could hear us.
Oh, she's busy.
She's gonna come in, but she's just running a little late.
She's gonna be both Zoom and in person.
Correct. Just gonna make sure we can get her in once she gets here.
We'll see her.
I wondered if you were like in your project, and I was like, oh, they better not leave me out here.
And is Katie on the Zoom?
Not yet.
Oh,
Oh,
there she
there she
is.
is.
Right on time.
We emailed out our attorney. Your browser is preventing, okay, wait a minute, your browser is preventing access to your microphone and how to. So do I want it, Georgina, it's not letting me, it's saying my browser, I can't hear, I could hear Michelle. It's saying, I'll go down here, I'll click this. I click this. Your browser's preventing. You want my clicker? No.
Maybe so.
Katie, can you hear us?
That looks like a no.
No, right?
Yeah.
Body language says that.
We could send her a text to go to the YouTube channel.
Can she talk on there? Can she just participate? I don't know enough about,
I don't know if through the YouTube channel you can't.
I mean, through the live stream.
She could call in, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
I can give her my phone number.
Okay, it's working out.
It's working now.
I just gotta do it a couple times. No,
Hi, Katie, can you hear us?
Hi, I can hear you, I can't see you though.
you
Um,
can undo your screen.
I can undo mine.
We probably need to get like a camera that goes on top of the TV up there. You know how they have those
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we can,
We're just waiting for one of our other members.
Oh. There we go.
Hi.
Hello.
No,
Hi.
that's better. We're just waiting for,
Lisa,
do you want to prep those that binder? Oh, yeah, that's good.
we have plenty of binders.
Yeah. Thank you.
They're kind of heavy, so I apologize.
Yeah. I think one is probably good, don't you? How's that? Is that good? Yeah, that looks good.
All right, okay.
Thank you, Maura. Thank you.
Maura, do you need this back?
Nope. Everything I need is in this binder, which is fantastic.
that's
Thank you
great.
for that.
You're welcome.
Oh, you did a good job.
Been through a few policy subcommittee meetings.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sure you have.
It shows.
We still have some from last year that we have to get through too, which you wouldn't have known about because we hadn't had the opportunity. So for the next meeting, I'll make sure they're all listed on the, as future agenda stuff for policy meetings. We
Great.
may not get through them all, but I'm interested to meet you. So I think maybe one that we passed that yet.
Katie, I'm just setting my phone up with the stuff that we had texted about earlier today or emailed about. Which
Okay.
section is that you have flagged? I remember why I did it, I just want to make sure that I can reference it.
It was in the bullying section at the end, or near the end. Let me pull up the exact page for you.
Well, since Michelle's on, I will, Michelle, can you respond that you can hear?
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear.
So since Michelle's on, what I'll do is I'll call the meeting to order. And then we'll do the pledge and everything, and then hopefully by then Lisa will have joined us. Just because for voting purposes, I know that there was some hope that we would vote on some policies, but if we don't have 3 people, we can't vote them through the committee, but that doesn't mean that if we needed to, we could call another meeting, potentially via Zoom, if we have access to that, to just vote to do that, and then we can move them along. Because I don't wanna hold any policies up. So it is 4:07, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. If we could stand to pledge of allegiance, Aaron, would you like to lead?
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I just want to mention that Dave Sanders is recording via Wilbraham Public Access
Public access and YouTube.
and YouTube. Okay. I just want to make sure we do what we're supposed to do. I don't believe there's anybody else recording. And then in person, we do have Georgina Trebi. Is there anybody else in attendance online besides? And now we also have Katie, or do you prefer Kate? I don't want to call you by the wrong name.
No, that's okay. My name's Katie Meinelt.
Okay, and so we'll just kind of jump right into, we're looking to discuss 3 policies today: ACAA, non-discrimination on the basis of sex; ACAB, sexual harassment; JBA, student-to-student harassment. Is the JICK supposed to be item D?
It's the same thing, it's just a policy that has a different name and a different reference now.
Okay, and then JICFB, bullying, hazing, and intimidation policy. So we'll start with the ACA discussion.
Lisa's on her way in.
Okay, so we'll just give it 1 second.
You mean like right?
I see her, yep,
Oh,
I see her.
Yes, she's walking across. Just give it a quick minute. So Katie, for those that are participating that may not know who you are, would you mind doing a little bit of an introduction? And just
Yeah,
kind of share
sure.
what you do with our district?
Absolutely. So my name is Katie Meinelt. I am the attorney for Hamden-Wilbraham Regional School District. Nice to see everybody. I have worked with the district since, I think, 2018, and most recently have started working with John in his new role as superintendent. And so I came out this summer and did a training with the administrative leadership team, and a lot of it was on different policies, and had sort of flagged some concerns that I had seen just in terms of things needing to be updated. And I know that John had already been making that a priority on his list of things to do. So for the purposes of today, I'm here to help and offer, any guidance that people need, and, answer any legal questions that people have.
Perfect. John did share with me that there were some policies that he wanted to review. We also have a few others that, now that I know who you are, I apologize, I didn't even really know what you could have been doing for our district in the last year or so. So I'm excited to meet you and to run some policies by you, because I think you were a great resource for us.
Absolutely. I'm happy to help any way that I can.
Okay, and so these policies, as Katie was saying, came out of her training, or the prioritization of these policies came out of the training and observations she had made about those in preparation for the training. And so what I did in the folder is just try to harmonize them with the current MASC model policy language. And so if it pleases the subcommittee, I'll just get right to it.
Sure.
Okay, so policy ACA is non-discrimination on the basis of sex. This one is very minor changes. So the only real change is adding the update from MASC 2022, which I recommend doing. It just documents that this policy has been reviewed in a timely way and now updated in our policy manual. And also there's a new reference from USDOE Notice of Interpretation. So none of the language of the policy changes the same, changes rather. None of the other legal references change, but those are the differences between what we currently have and the current MASC recommendation.
Do you see any other things, Katie, that we should include that may not be included?
No, this one's good. I think, the reference to the US DOE Notice of Interpretation is important to put in there just because previously under prior administration, gender identity was not protected. And so referencing the more recent guidance from the Department of Ed, I think is important to note for students and families and employees, certainly that gender identity is protected as well as sexual orientation of those individuals.
Okay. So, sexual harassment?
Well, so I guess is there any question by anybody, other than the fact that Michelle, I don't know that she has seen the policy change requests. I don't see that it's any major issue. I do want to mention that we've the way we've sort of handled policies in the past is we don't always just take what the MASCs, they've made it very clear to us that they're more of a reference.
Mm-hmm.
So there are instances that where we may want more language than what's their minimum to kind of beef it up. In the past, when we've done that, we've run it by Attorney Sweeney, but now that we have Katie, I think there's some of these that you actually had asked about having a conversation about. We started a conversation a little over a year ago, or just like the beginning of COVID. So I think that I'm excited to have conversations more about the employee to employee, employee to student, that conversation, because there was an ask for that.
Okay.
Not only just for students, but Cheryl, as a former employee, had said, we really needed to improve that. So we started looking at other districts that already had policies to potentially adopt beyond just the bare minimum of what the MASC asks for.
Sure.
So I don't see any reason why we couldn't vote to approve the ACA one and bring that to the school committee meeting, because it does require 3 readings, so I'd rather get that started than have to wait. Do you have any issues with that, Lisa?
Nope.
Michelle, based on what you've heard, do you have any issues?
No, I don't.
Okay. So do I have a motion?
Motion
Yeah.
for the first read? Is that what we're motioning
To
for?
approve as the changes.
Yes, to approve the changes for ACA, non-discrimination on the basis of sex.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll bring that one to the next, if you can add that to the folder for the next school committee meeting. And we'll do that as the first reading for ACA. Okay, if you want to proceed with the next one.
Okay, unfortunately, the next one has extensive edits and revisions. So basically, the easiest way to explain the first paragraph is that the language there, currently in the current policy, would be replaced by a couple of new sentences. So the first paragraph would read, the Hamden Wilbraham Regional School District and the Hamden Regional School Committee and Hamden Regional School District are committed to maintaining an education and work environment for all school community members that is free from all forms of harassment, including sexual harassment. Members of the school community include the school committee, employees, administration, faculty, staff, students, volunteers in the schools, and parties contracted to perform work for the Hamden Wilbraham Regional Schools. So that, to a certain extent, starts to get into what you were just talking about, making sure that the policy is applicable to all members of the school community.
Because I think we tried to do that with our original one, with the all persons associated. And I think that's why some of that wording was the way it was.
So I guess I would just say, this is a little bit more explicit. I don't know, I could imagine someone disagreeing whether or not they were associated with the school district.
Okay.
I don't know, thoughts on that, Katie?
I was just gonna say, so Title IX actually uses the language of third parties. I was just pulling up the language for that. So, but this language explicitly says, that obviously it's school committee employees, administration, faculty, staff, students, but then the third parties could be volunteers in the school or parties contracted to perform work for the school. So I think that that's fine if you want to specify what third party would be.
So do you specify? Do you specify what the third party is gonna be?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that volunteers in the schools are parties contracted to perform work for the schools. Obviously, they wouldn't fall under employees of the school or part of the school committee, but would be considered third parties that, would still fall under Title IX.
Okay.
If you wanted to say, faculty, staff, and students, as well as third parties, including volunteers in the schools and parties contracted to perform work for the schools, you could do that if you wanted to, but I don't think that's necessary.
I mean, isn't that what you're suggesting to change it to, though?
What's that?
Isn't that what you're suggesting to change it to?
Well, this is the MASC language.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying, sorry, I'll clarify. So I'm just saying the Title IX specifically uses the term third party. So if you wanted to include third parties in that language, you could do that as well. I think volunteers in the schools and parties contracted to perform work for the schools is third parties, but if you want to use that specific language from Title IX, you could do that.
I guess the question I would have around third parties is, and this, based on your understanding of Title IX would be an important difference, does third parties include visitors to the schools? Does it include members of other teams?
By definition, yeah.
And if so, should we include those in our policies?
Right, so the definition of Title IX is that one of the qualifying factors is that we would have to have substantial control over the person, and so I would say a visitor we wouldn't be considered to have substantial control over, like a parent or something like that. But certainly, a volunteer or somebody that we're contracting with from the outside, we would have some substantial control over them. And so, and you'll hear me say this more than once tonight, but just because something doesn't fall under Title IX doesn't mean that we can't address it under our sexual harassment policy. So that's a clarifying point as well, that, parents could fall under, I'd have to look specifically at the sexual harassment language, but parents could fall under the more general policy rather than Title IX.
So, but what about when you have other schools visiting on the property? Because they're not technically third party, but they are visitors.
Right. I mean, I think again, it would count as one of the qualifying factors for Title IX is if we would have substantial control over that person, and so it might not fall under Title IX. It might go to our sexual harassment policy as well. And I mean, I think the other important conversation is that even if something doesn't fall under Title IX, that doesn't mean that we're not going to support the student or the victim or whoever it is, right? It just means that we wouldn't have to go through that formal complaint process under Title IX.
To which I guess I'll just say, so this introductory language is sort of laying out the boundaries of the sexual harassment policy in general. We get into Title IX a little bit farther on, but I think there may be potentially violations of sexual harassment policy that aren't also violations of Title IX. Depending
Right,
on what
Title
policy the
IX
school committee wants
Title
to
IX is a
have.
higher standard.
Right.
Yeah.
So the question here is whether we want to add in third parties to this list of people.
When you bring a lawyer, it overcomplicates things, right?
Not always. I guess it just depends on what best protects the district, right? So at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the district is protected, not just the school committee, but the district. And so, if your recommendation is to not necessarily reference, because I think at the end of it references the Title IX, right? If I'm correct.
Mhm.
So it does a cross-reference to the Title IX, so that would play into should there be any sort of definition or requirement, right?
Yeah, so I think my only suggestion for consideration would be to put the members of the school community include the school committee, employees, administration, faculty, staff, students, and third parties, including volunteers in the schools and parties contracted to perform work for the schools.
So for purposes of, I know how members of our committee may ask, should it be in third party, but not limited to all those people she just referenced? For language purposes?
I don't know, I would defer to her, since it's her recommendation.
Including but not limited to?
Yeah, only because someone may
Yeah.
need to, they may not be defined as a third party, but, people like to,
I think that's fine. The important piece is the substantial control piece, but I think that that's fine.
Okay, we good on the first paragraph?
I think so.
Okay. So then, next, basically, there are two additional paragraphs in here that are in the current policy that are sort of lead-ups to the definition of sexual harassment. And the definition of sexual harassment is quite a bit different. So the recommendation would be to replace all of that language with the new definition of sexual harassment, starting with a bold red. Sexual harassment is an unwelcome contact of a sexual nature, going all the way down to the next section that begins with notice of sexual harassment. So this is all a very technical bit of language from the new MASC recommendations.
So did you even take out, are you looking to take out some of the language, or just you rewording what the guidance from the MASC was?
It would be basically a complete redo of that next section. There is still a bulleted list of examples of types of sexual harassment, but as you'll see, the list is different now.
Okay. Same page, I can't figure this out.
I'm sure you've seen this language before in your working with other districts. Katie, does it look kosher to
Yes.
you?
Yep, and a lot of this is also from Title IX. So the definition includes unwelcome conduct on the basis of sex that is so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive, it denies the person equal access. That is the standard under Title IX.
I have no issue with the changing of the definition of it. Anybody else?
No. It matches what employees have to take when they, why am I not thinking of it right
When
now?
they do their GCN training?
Yes, when they do their GCN training.
Okay. And then, I think, Katie, your note on this when you were training was that our current policy was missing a section on notice requirements. And so that is, that's the next piece of this. So the next part goes into what the district's obligations are when it receives a notice of sexual harassment, triggered when a school district has actual notice that an allegation has been made to any school employee. It says the school must treat seriously all reports of sexual harassment that meet the definition of harassment and conditions of actual notice in jurisdiction as noted, whether or not the complainant files a formal complaint.
So the only thing I would change about some of that wording is we need to make it more HWRC
Sure.
and not school districts. Because it's supposed to cater to like us, I don't want it to be, I think it just reads so broad that it's not actually ours. So if it's our policy, it should be addressed to us and our community. Does that make sense?
Yep, so how about instead of where
We
it
could just
says,
put HWRC. Works. And then I think in the retaliation, just up section before that, where it says retaliation against the complainant, because they have filed a harassment or sexual complaint, assisted or participated, it says a student or employee who was found to have retaliated against another in violation of this. So we reference a student and employee, but in the beginning we talk about third party. So I think we need to just look at how we word that. Maybe even if someone is found to have retaliated versus directly calling someone out. Because I don't want it to be limited to in one area where we're being so broad in the beginning. Does that make sense,
Yeah.
Katie? I don't know if you can hear me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, can you point out exactly what page you're on though?
They're not labeled by page, so I'm assuming it's page 2, 2 paragraphs up from the notice of sexual harassment on the ones where it's the current policy with changes.
I see, okay.
Where it says the
Yep.
retaliation, but the second sentence starts with a student or employee who was found. So I'm just wondering if we should replace that wording with should a member be found, or, because we just talked about in the first paragraph, talking about all the people that are called out within the policy, but now you're limiting it to just those 2 individuals. So I'm just asking if we should replace a student or employee with anyone to be found in, to have retaliated against another.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but for that particular sentence, if let's say they're a volunteer, the disciplinary action wouldn't be a suspension or expulsion.
So then that leads to the next, that part after, because it depends on who and what is doing where the retaliation is coming from. Because it wouldn't just be a student or a teacher, an employee, if you're talking third party.
it also says, up to and including, it doesn't say that it has to be suspension or expulsion.
Right.
So you could say, you're no longer volunteering here.
Right.
That'd be a lesser penalty.
So we have to specifically name.
Could you change it so that the disciplinary actions up to and including suspension, expulsion, or termination? So it's not just an employee termination, but it would be termination of a volunteer, it'd be termination of a third party contract, or it could fall under an employee termination.
So get rid of the word employee.
Maybe, I don't know, kind of hoping Katie will add a few.
yeah, no, I'm just
Trying to be
reading the
broad.
language here from, Title IX. Retaliation against an individual who has brought good faith allegations of sexual harassment to the attention of the school district who's cooperated in an investigation. will not be tolerated by the school district if a student or employee believes that he or she or they has been retaliated against in connection with any good faith report of inappropriate conduct or harassment. The employee or student should immediately report the conduct to the Title IX coordinator.
Yeah, we don't have that in here.
I think,
I see what you're saying, I guess. I'm sorry, John.
I think it works if you say any person who is found to have retaliated, and then leave the rest of that sentence except termination. So you, really what you're doing is you're getting suspension, expulsion, or termination in there as possible consequences for students who are employees or students. And it still leaves all kinds of other discipline available for people who don't fall into those two categories.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you could also put that it would be at the discretion of the, whoever the designee is, right, superintendent
It's
or
always,
designee.
yeah, it's always at the discretion of whoever is the decision maker.
That was the only thing I didn't necessarily, other than I know the Title IX that there's, when we were talking about the due process part, we had talked about like the Title IX coordinator or investigator, but like, I think it's important that we identify who the
It's on the next page. It's
mhm.
Title IX coordinator.
Yeah, that's filing, yeah, but I'm just saying filing a complaint. But I'm just saying the person who is responsible for making sure the suspension, expulsion, or termination. I don't know if we have to, where we call out the designee for that besides the Title IX coordinator, if that's like superintendent or Title IX. Cause that, you know, to your point of
Well, let me just
consequence.
Sure, so let me just share it with you. So one of the things that's complex about Title IX is under the, what I'm still gonna call the new regulations, it has to be a bifurcated process. So you have one person who's an investigator and
Mhm.
another person who's a decision maker.
Yep.
And because of that, there are many different combinations that I've used in the past. Sometimes, for example, the principal, who would normally be the decision maker for any employees in their schools, can't be the decision maker because they've already been exposed to so much information. They're basically an investigator, and so you have to bring in a principal from another school to be the decision maker. So I think what this policy should do is just designate how people are supposed to file a complaint, and it says they can do it directly to Lisa, or they can do it to any of their building principals.
Okay.
And then as the process unfolds, it's going to be very fact dependent, and whoever the investigator and the decision maker would be in an individual case may vary based on what's already taken place by the time the district becomes aware of the complaint.
Perfect.
Yep, I totally agree, John. I wouldn't pigeonhole yourself on the investigator or the decision maker, or even the appeal decision maker. The only person that needs to be designated is the Title IX coordinator.
Okay, sounds good to me. Some of the questions I ask is so that it becomes part of the discussion, so that should someone go back and watch this video, or people aren't aware of how Title IX works, I'm learning still as it goes, but I think it's important to make sure that the public knows, and also other members on the committee. So when we have that, so you may need to repeat that one more time, at least for one of the readings of the policy.
Sure.
So people understand why in certain instances we don't list the superintendent as the designee, or the, you know, as the person that makes the decisions.
The complaint could be against the superintendent. You don't
Sure.
want that
Sure.
person being the designee for
Sure.
that, right?
Sure. But I think that at the committee level, I think
Right.
that may need to just be mentioned.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, happy to do that, or prompt me with a question if I forget to.
That's okay. I
Okay.
can do that.
Okay.
I think you could dictate some of this with your eyes closed, so I'm kind of impressed.
Okay, so, well, since we're in the due process section, I would also just ask Katie if you had any observations about the due process. This is where this gets very complicated from my perspective.
Right. Nope, all of the information that in here is what is required under Title IX in terms of that initial outreach and then the rights of both parties throughout.
I will point out that when I was listing the principals, the MASC said name an individual. I'm naming them by title so that we don't have to go through this process every time the principal changes.
Sure. But we'll have to make note that,
But I do think you have to identify your Title IX person.
is there supposed to be a name and a phone number for her? Did you just have her listed, but you, like, we have the
Yeah,
agreement
we'll
on
have the phone
principals?
number.
And then, Katie, is there any issue with like emails for the Title IX versus phone? So if someone wanted to email her instead?
Nope, it can be verbal, a verbal complaint or a written complaint.
So should we include an email address at least for her?
Sure.
Just a thought.
Okay, so within this yellow highlighted changes, I think some of the legal references are updated. Obviously, the one from 2020 is updated in the MASC 2021. And it says that summary of the attached policy adopted must be sent to employees' guardians. So when this change is made, we'll have to include that in the handbook.
Yes. So, yeah. So between that and then I think as you look at what things that we commit to the whether it be the employee handbook or the student handbook, we probably want to keep a list of things where we have to, if one thing changes. So if Title IX, if the Title IX person's name changes, you have to look at the employee handbook as well as the student handbook, as well as the policy manual.
Yeah.
So just to try to make sure that we can connect all the dots, because, you know, you're gonna forget, not you, but we'll forget.
Yeah, I'll forget too. You see how thick that book of policies is, a bunch of them
Yeah,
have
I don't
things
know how
like this.
Kate, I don't know how Kate managed to do it year to year to know what to update and where, but it was always updated, so we'll get there.
So then that's it on this one. All the rest of the content from the original policy would be replaced by this time.
I don't see an issue with any of that. So with the change of our policy, will we change our internal policy? So that, because I know we have policies for sexual harassment on our website and forms of which people can report different things. Will you guys take a look at just some of that to make sure that it all,
Yeah, we can take a look at it. I don't think that any of the stuff that's on our current website should conflict with this policy, because it says that you don't have to file any special form. It could be a
Sure.
verbal complaint. You could file a complaint any way you want to. But we'll take a look just to make sure there's nothing on there that says, like, for example, this is the only way you can file a complaint or anything like that.
I just figured.
Can I just hop in for a second? So when I went through this earlier today, there were just like a few typos from copying over from MASC that I corrected, but they didn't, now that I'm looking at it, it doesn't look like it showed up in track changes. But another piece of it that I want to point out is the standard that we are following. So under Title IX, you can do two different standards in terms of evidence, clear and convincing standard or preponderance of the evidence standard. Public schools are typically, K through 12, I should say, public schools are typically using the preponderance of the evidence standard. So I had actually removed, John, the language in there about the clear and convincing, but now I'm looking at it and it doesn't look like that popped up, so I want to make sure that you guys were aware that I had removed that. If you want to keep it in there, you certainly can, but the preponderance of the evidence standard is, it's basically like 51%, so it's more likely than not. So it's the lower standard, and that's the one that I advise all of my districts to use, and I would say most K through 12 schools are using that standard as well.
It looks like it did come through on ours. Is it in
Oh, good,
section
okay.
8 of the due process?
Say that again, John?
Is it in section 8 of the due process?
Yes, it's in the due process piece, yep.
So what we're looking at, or at least what I'm looking at, says the respondent is not responsible, including the facts and evidence on which the conclusion was based by applying the preponderance of the evidence. So if that's a
there's
change.
three parts. So if you look on the due process protections number 3,
Yep, that's preponderance.
Yep,
so that previously said clear and convincing or preponderance of the evidence subject to limitations.
Yeah, it only says preponderance right now.
Okay, so then that's not showing up, so I made a change to that, that I want to point out for you. And then at the bottom of number 8, that last, on my page, it's the last sentence, including the facts and evidence on which the conclusion was based by applying the preponderance of the evidence, that also had clear and convincing as well.
Yeah, that doesn't have that. It says as long as the process is voluntary for all parties after being fully informed and written consent is provided by both parties, a school may facilitate and form a resolution of a sexual complaint.
that's right
Okay.
after it says preponderance. So you've
Yeah.
got preponderance in 3 and in 8. And that seems to be consistent with the advice you're giving right now?
Yes,
Okay.
that, I made those changes, so that's what I'm recommending, yes.
Okay. I don't have any issue with that. Anybody have any questions?
Nope.
Do you want to, are you comfortable voting to bring this to the school committee meeting?
With the changes that John, wrote
Go
down.
ahead and do your thing.
Okay. I don't even know how to word it. I make a motion with the changes that were made in our discussion to bring the first reading for ACAB sexual harassment to the full committee.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you for that, your help on that one, Katie.
Yep.
Okay, so let's see, we'll get to the next one. This double page stuff is great until you need the stuff that's on that page.
So this next policy is currently known as JBA, student-to-student harassment. And that policy no longer exists in the MASC policy manual. The replacement, I believe, is JICK, harassment of students.
So does that, I think we have to vote to remove the JDA. I don't know that just gets removed. Oh, there's the easy. That's what I just may need to ask our rep from the MASC, because I do vaguely recall Glenn mentioning something about you can remove a policy if you don't need it, like, for example, like the face coverings one. Because you can always take it off and put it back. So I think we should formally remove it and then replace it. Does that make sense? If that's your recommendation, so that we take it out of the book altogether.
Yep. It does, in the draft that I've prepared here, I did carry over some of the language from the old JBA, so you may just want to point that out when having that discussion. Because that may have been one that we may not have ever really done, but it could have just been when we had to do the policy manual. We accepted it as a policy back when everybody had policy updates. Okay. I don't think we
Do
have
you
to.
need a separate motion on that, or can you embed that within the J?
I think we can probably embed that one, because it's removing but replacing, and then we just have to make sure we document it accordingly.
Okay.
Any issues, anybody have any questions with that, Michelle or Lisa?
No.
Okay, so then in JIC, I think the first, there's no change to the first sentence, 'cause I'm proposing would be the same, I guess I should say, would be the sentence from the old JBA policy. And then there's this new sentence that says sexual harassment must involve conduct that occurred within the school's own program or activity, such as whether the harassment occurred at a location under the circumstances where the school owned or substantially controlled the premises, exercised oversight, supervision, or discipline over the location or participants, or funded, sponsored, promoted, or endorsed the event where the harassment, alleged harassment occurred against a person in the United States. I think that all comes in like a echo of Title IX. Is that correct, Katie?
Yeah, it's similar, certainly.
So then, actually just rereading it a second time, I don't know if you need the last sentence. It says the policy is in effect while students are on school grounds. Maybe you do. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with keeping it, because the other sentence says that there are other things that could be included besides just school grounds. So it'd be in effect on field trips, so it'd be in effect on, you know, Washington DC trip, for example.
Sure.
Or sporting events, whatever.
So I think if anything, if there's a question that may just be, that's why we put United States, because if they're outside of the state, but they're on a school sponsored trip, which is a bus that's paid for by the district, then this policy would, you know, fall in line with.
Yeah, I think we could still do this policy. I think there are some funny things about Title IX that if it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if it was harassment that otherwise could qualify as Title IX violation, but if it occurs outside the United States, it can't really be looked at under Title IX. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then the next big change on this is updating the list of protected classes. So you'll see many of the protected classes are the same. Anything that's in black is in the old policy JBA. And then the new recommended protected classes would just be additions from the current MASC JICK. So the additions would be harassment on the basis of age, genetic information, doesn't have to be a capital I there, active military or veteran status, family status, pregnancy or pregnancy-related condition, homelessness, ancestry, ethnic background, or family status.
Okay.
And the language in black is remaining, correct?
Would remain, correct. So staying would be just for everyone's knowledge, race, sex, gender identity, color, national origin, sexual orientation, religion, marital status, or disability. Those are currently in the policy and would stay in the policy. There is also a footnote on race, which is currently in the policy, but the footnote is new. So MASC is recommending that we define race to include traits historically associated with race, including but not limited to hair texture, hair type, length of hair, and protective hairstyle.
So should we be defining race versus doing a footnote someplace? Because I would expect there to be some sort of reference in some other policy where there is a definition for that. Do you know what I mean? I'd have to go through all the policies, I don't remember them all when you get to the earlier.
Yeah, I don't know if we have one that defines what race is.
Because the reason I say that is there's probably other policies that probably need that quote-unquote footnote.
I see what you're saying.
So instead of it being a footnote, it's a definition, so then if you were to do that, it would reference all those.
Like where race is used in these policies, it shall have the following definition, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yep. So it's something we can look at.
Yep.
I'm gonna ask, if they don't have it, I'm not necessarily gonna go reinvent the wheel, but I'll ask.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then another new section from this is potential disciplinary action. So it says employees who have been found to violate this policy will be subject to discipline up to and including termination of employment, subject to contractual disciplinary obligations.
So should that be there versus underneath the employee to student harassment?
I think it could be in either place.
Only because I think where you're talking about that, because then I was surprised to see the, I know that the teachers we had been asked about having a employee to student harassment, and an employee to employee harassment. So I don't know, I I think that's when we started talking about harassment versus, we had talked about potentially naming the policy harassment versus it being harassment of students
Mhm,
for the purpose of covering all harassments.
mhm.
I just don't know that, we didn't know if that had been done, and so that was one of the things that hadn't been finished from a few years ago. To find out how we go about doing that. Because harassment is referenced in the employee handbook as well as the student handbook. So we need to make sure that whatever we instill in the policy gets referenced there as well.
Mhm.
Katie, how would
I
you?
agree with you. I'm sorry, I was gonna say that I do agree with that. Just having like a general harassment policy that could apply to students as well as employees. And could also, I mean, it's one of the other protections in here, this is student to student, it's employee to student, but it's not student to employee or employee to employee. And I've been involved in situations where it's student to employee, certainly, and that doesn't really fall under any of the harassment policies. So you can make it more generalized if that's something that you want to do. You could also have this separate, the one just for students, and then you could have a general one as well.
Because I think that's, a few years ago, that's what we were trying to do with the ACAB, which was the harassment, was to not make it just sexual harassment, but it would be the harassment, and then there would be some definition to the types of harassment and how that would fall with employee to employee, employee to student, student to employee, all those things, versus having all these other sub-policies like JIC, JBA, you know, things like that, that I don't know if it makes sense to look at the ACAB and have it all as part of the whole harassment policy instead of it just being specifically sexual harassment, but I'm not saying that that's what we do, I'm just wondering if it just makes sense to have one really big long policy that just covers all of the types of harassment, or do subs.
So I wouldn't recommend removing the sexual harassment policy. I would instead look at adding a more general, I'm looking at AC or ACR right now on MASC's website to see.
Cause I know ACAB has changed, it's changed over the last few years to go from, it was the original harassment policy, and then they changed it to read as sexual harassment. As they've gone and updated all their policies, so I mean, I'm not saying
So
they changed something.
ACR, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're okay, I'm done.
AC-R is the more generalized harassment and retaliation. It's non-discrimination policy, including harassment and retaliation, and it includes discrimination and harassment are defined as unwelcome conduct, whether verbal or physical, that's based on an individual's actual or perceived race, color, sex, sexual orientation, and then it lists all the protected classes. So that would be something that you would want to take a look at.
I'm sorry, say that letter again.
AC-R.
So we had, when we started having the conversation about harassment a little over a year ago, that's when we had started looking at utilizing other policies that other districts had and paying homage to those districts. Specifically, we were looking at the Essex North Shore Agriculture and Technical School District, because they had probably a 4 or 5 page policy, but it called out all the legal references for the Title VI, for the Civil Rights, Equal Education Opportunity, Title IX, Section 504 of the Rehab Act, Title II, Americans with Disability, the No Child Left Behind, a bunch of Mass General laws, not to, because if I read them all off, we'd be here for a while. But it called out specifically unlawful and prohibited conduct, defined like hate crimes, discrimination, harassment, sexual, gender harassment, hostile environment, retaliation, verbal conduct, written conduct, nonverbal conduct, visual conduct, physical conduct, responsibilities of the district, what the district would do, the responsibilities of how all that worked. And then like the Title VI and Title IX coordinators and like their roles and how they would discipline specifically. You don't have to do that so you can take it out, but that was the direction we were trying to go, and then COVID came. And so I think MASC changed a lot of they started adding all these other like lettered policies that I don't necessarily, I mean, we can add them, but I think, I don't know which the best option is, if we just keep adding all these other extra policies or have one that just defines it all.
Right, so, I guess the problem with that is, when you're putting them all together, then that means that your due process protections and your investigation requirements are all the same regardless of what the issue is. And I think that, just in terms of staffing and, attention and how you're gonna deal with all of those different issues, I think that would be really difficult. Especially sexual harassment in Title IX, the required process is pretty intensive. It involves multiple staff being involved, and so I don't know that I would recommend that for every single potential discrimination case that would come up in the district. So I think that I'm happy to take a look at the direction that you were going in and weigh in certainly on that, but my suggestion would be to have your, sexual harassment policy and then have a general non-discrimination policy, which would include harassment and retaliation on all protected classes.
Did you say nondescript?
And if you look at AC-R, that's what that does.
Okay. I'm not looking to, I'm just trying to make it easier, because where we also have to
Right.
make sure that all the other employee and student handbooks and stuff make reference to all the right information.
Right.
That's all I'm looking to do. I'm not looking to take shortcuts or anything like that, but that specific policy actually, I believe, identified all the things that you had concerns with the Title IX and
Okay.
Title.
Yeah, I'm happy to review it for sure.
Can we have it on scan it, sure?
She can probably find it I can get the link and send it to Erin, and she can email her the link to find
Okay.
it. Cause it's on the internet, so, but it's already pre-approved by the Attorney General and the Department of Education for someone to have as a policy. So it's not like we're just creating something. All of them have to be approved by people, from what I've been told, so. That's why I
Did you
take
say it was
homage.
Ethics Tech?
Say again?
Did you say it was Ethics Tech?
Essex North Shore? ESSEX, sorry, I have a weird accent.
Okay, I'll pull it up.
It's their ACAB, I mean, they very well could have changed it, I haven't looked at it since 2021. But I'll look up the AC-R as well.
Okay, great.
So maybe we should set this one aside for now.
I think I just wanna make sure that we do the right thing for that one, because I know that, like I said, that one was one that was, we wanna make sure the employees are covered as well.
Mhm.
Whether it's that one or we decide to use a different policy for employee to employee, I just wanna make sure that that diligence is done.
Okay. And so, I don't know whether we have enough time. I know there's a hard stop in 15 minutes, and there's a lot of potential changes to the bullying. Do you want to try it, or?
I think we'll ask Kate, because we kinda need her.
I mean, I'm happy to, I think, to be honest, I think the bullying is probably more straightforward than some of the other harassment policies, so I'm happy to try and plow through that.
Okay, let's try to do it.
Okay. So right off the bat, I just want you to know that I'd like that first sentence to reference the Hampton-Wilbraham School District. Because I think that that's us as a whole, not just us as the school committee. If that's okay.
Mm-hmm. No, it's good.
But other than that, it all looked good to me, so.
Okay.
Go for it.
So it's just a slightly different version of the bullying. Well, I guess before hazing and intimidation were included in the district's policy, so this one is focusing just on bullying. As a result, The list of protected classes comes out of this one because anyone can be bullied. It doesn't, you don't have to belong to a protected class to be a target of bullying. The definition of bullying is new in this. So it says repeated use by one or more students or staff members of a written, verbal, or electronic expression or a physical act or gesture or any combination thereof directed at a target that causes physical or emotional harm, places the target in reasonable fear for themselves or damage to their property, creates a hostile environment at school, infringes on the rights of the target at school, or materially and substantially disrupts the educational process. Those are all, to my knowledge, basically verbatim from the anti-bullying law, so just including those in there. Then definition of cyberbullying, pretty lengthy section, saying what it is first, and that saying that it can be done either under your own name or under a pseudonym or false identity, and it can include social media or distribution of material through social media networks. Then the other changes are the legal references. Basically, the Civil Rights Act reference is eliminated, and then Title IX is added. All these federal regulations and Massachusetts regulations are added. The acts of 2022, and then cross-reference to the policy AC, which is non-discrimination, which we were talking about earlier, I believe, and update from MASC from 2022. The reference before from the American School Board Journal from the last century would be taken out.
So that, so I'm sorry, the other one had the reference to,
This last thing.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, it looks like it was September of 1999.
Yeah, probably.
So that was the plow-through version.
Yeah. So, this one also has a review timeframe listed in it for, the bullying prevention and intervention plan shall be reviewed and updated at least by biennially. I'm not saying that right, but I've never seen that out before, I've only heard it said.
I'd like to take a look, but I think there are other policies related. I think there may be a JCIFB-R or something like that
Yeah.
that goes into that piece.
But I just want, I mean, the only thing I would ask is the who is gonna review it and when. That's, you know, if we put in that it's gonna get reviewed, we wanna make sure that it somehow gets on a list that gets reviewed, whether it's, if it's gonna be the district administration or if it's gonna be the district as far as like the school committee, as far as policy with the school committee and with the superintendent, the Title IX coordinator and things like that. We just wanna make sure if we do that and it's called out in the policy that we're actually doing it.
So that's in the training and assessment and publication and notice section. Do you have some recommended changes there?
Not exactly, because I wanted to see what other people have written in theirs.
Okay.
Because it may be something that gets looked at annually, but if that's the case, or if they do it every 2 years, you just want to make sure that it gets done. Because I think there's a lot of policies where we say they'll get looked at every year, but we don't, and I don't even think anybody actually knows what that schedule looks like. So at some point, I started during the summertime kind of going through all the policies to figure out which ones had that. I know of 4 other ones that have a review time frame on them, but I think we need to get them into our calendar to be able to review, not just as the policy sub, but as a school committee as a whole. Katie, do you know if this policy, when you've done this with other districts, is it something that they review annually as far as the policy itself, or?
So it all falls under the superintendent. So I don't know that it necessarily needs to be the full school committee that's reviewing it, but obviously if changes are being made. But I think it's more just John, you know, sort of keeping up to date with any changes or references in the laws. So, I mean, right now it says it falls under superintendent or designee shall oversee the development of the plan and consultation, That obviously has already happened. And then bullying prevention plan will be reviewed and updated at least biannually. So, that can all fall under John.
Okay.
You could even put in there by the superintendent or designee if you want to.
Do you want to commit yourself to that timeframe now?
The every other year?
Yeah.
I think that one is in the statute or regulation, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can look at that real quick and see. Give me 10 seconds.
I just don't want to pigeonhole you into something.
Appreciate that.
Yep. That is in the statute, so it says that it will be updated at least biannually, and the department, it says the department will also update the model plan, list of resources, and post them on their website.
So I gotta keep that.
Okay. I don't see any issue with this one.
John, the only question I had was just around the formatting in that section, where it says bullying is prohibited on school grounds, on property immediately adjacent to school, at school-sponsored events. It has bullets, but then and it removes numbers 1, 2, and 3, but then it still has 4 and 5 in there without any language that was in the MASC policy.
Oh, yeah, so this I didn't necessarily want to take out because that was in there from the school committee from before. I guess I wanted to have some guidance on whether or not you wanted to take out 4 and 5.
Well, I mean, if you took the numbers off the other ones, does it matter whether we numeric them or if we bullet them?
I don't think it's the formatting issue, but the question is whether you want to have in this list, again, technology or use of electronic devices. I think it is covered in the whole discussion of cyberbullying,
Yeah.
but you can keep it or not, in my opinion. And the other one, non-school related locations through the use of non-school technology or electronic devices if it disrupts the school. Again, that language is used in other places in the policy, so it's a question of whether you just want to repeat that here.
Well, so do we want to reference the acceptable use policy as a cross-reference, because that also does the whole, I believe that they're not supposed to bully using electronic devices.
Yeah, we could add that to the list of cross-refs.
I'm just wondering if it makes sense, since you want to talk about the use of technology. I mean, I think you should still list electronic devices owned and licensed,
Okay.
but I don't know. Katie, do you have any suggestion on that?
So I think that if you look at the MASC language, it's on page 11 of 14 at the top there, or I guess it starts on the bottom of page 10, where it says bullying is prohibited, and it bullets out. I guess my point is that this language is not exactly the same as the MASC policy, and I think that the MASC policy includes additional language of that we would want to include there that says bullying and cyberbullying are prohibited at a location, activity, function, or program that's not school related through the use of technology, you know, and then references if it creates a hostile environment, infringes on the rights, or materially and substantially disrupts. You see where I'm saying?
Yeah, that's number
Yes.
5.
So, but if she's talking about on their policy right here, this one, so they have it bulleted. So I think if we utilize the bulleted points under bullying is prohibited from the MASC version,
Yep.
all the way through to the use of technology in our electronic devices as bullets, I think that would be more acceptable.
Okay.
And then I don't know. Bullying prevention. I do like that they do the create a hostile environment. I just have to look back to see the cross of if that's all in there. Infringe on the rights of the target. I think that's in ours, but I don't know that it's bulleted out. I think it's just paragraphed.
So we'll just keep the MASC language for that whole section.
I would do that. I think it's clearer.
Okay,
It's included in the definition of bullying up above, but I think it's clearer to separate it out this way as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
okay.
So is it possible that before we vote on this, can we get a cleaned up version of what it will look like?
Mhm.
Just that version, and, I mean, I realize that you have all this other stuff, but I think it'll be easier for us to make sure that what we're voting on in the format of it,
Mhm. So say, bring this one back revised to the next meeting?
if that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think everything else looks good, is in alignment with what's required under the law.
I'd rather sometimes have too much information than not enough, especially since this is such a hot topic. And then, because I think we also should look at some of the other cross-references that we may want to include.
Okay.
I mean, if we don't include them, it's not like it's gonna be a deal breaker, but, because then whatever we change this to, we may need to absolutely update the student handbook,
Mhm.
just the references.
Yep.
Or the bullets. Okay. So that concludes the 4 that you wanted to talk about. We had some previous ones for future meetings that I just have to find the notes I had. I apologize, I just had them. There will be other policies that come up. We have been asked to look at potentially review the library policy. So I will bring that up at a future meeting. There were some other MASC policies that need to be updated. I know, Michelle, you had a couple more. Do you by chance know what those ones were? Okay, sorry, I didn't look. So, as far as future meetings, I don't know how often you wanna meet. I think it's always good to meet at least once a month at a minimum.
Mhm.
But I also, depending on who's required, I wanna be mindful of people's time. I think maybe if we do a 4:30 start, just to allow for certain members to be able to get out of school and get over here.
Mhm.
Katie, you're always welcome to come. I don't know, I'll leave it up to John if he wants to have you attend or not, if that's okay with you.
Certainly,
but-
absolutely.
But by all means, any policies we talk about, we'll likely just send over and have you review before we bring to a full committee if you're not a participant in the meeting.
Yep, absolutely.
Is that
However
okay
I
with
can
you,
help.
Mhm.
So I don't know when you guys wanna meet. The next meeting, we'll just do a reorg, for that, and then we'll start off at the standard of how we normally, we'll go back into some policies.
Sure.
Are there any other policies you'd like to review going forward?
I don't see any that are high priority right now.
Okay. I know we touched on, there was a whole bunch of financial ones that they had updated, but Aaron went through those, last year and said that we didn't necessarily have to update them all, we updated the ones that we needed.
Mhm.
So I'll put all this together just to kind of run you through that,
Sure.
so you're where we left off last year. And so, when do you guys think you wanna do another meeting? Lisa?
Well, what week are we in right now? I don't even know what week it is.
Today is the 12th, so we have
It's
2
the
more
second
weeks
week
for
of
this
October.
month. So we could potentially try to get another meeting in, if you wanted. Only because I think it's important that we do the student to student, the harassment one is a very important one, as well as the bullying, so even if we just meet to just go over those two, I think that's something that we should do.
Sure.
Do you have an issue, do you have a preference of when we meet?
I
Day,
turn to
time?
Aaron for that.
I do need to
Aaron,
schedule it.
what's up with the
Before we
schedule?
forget
Well,
though,
4:30
can we say goodbye to
seems like
Katie?
it.
She's
Yes,
a
I'm
fighter
sorry.
team
Katie.
Soccer.
Enjoy
Thank
the
you so
game.
much.
Remember, Katie?
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
John will reach out to
I
you.
appreciate it. Keep me posted when you need me. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
So when would you like to meet? And I'll look at John's calendar. When's good? I mean, John's,
So is there a preference in day? So if we're gonna meet on the week that there's a school committee meeting, I don't necessarily want to keep you here Wednesday and Thursday. The same?
Well, Thursday's already claimed by curriculum subcommittee, so I can't do that one.
the second one
The
is,
second meeting.
the second one of the
Okay.
month, so
You could link up to the first meeting if you
you
want.
could.
A link up to the first meeting?
The first meeting of the month.
Well, I usually like to do it on the off week of a meeting,
Okay.
unless it's easier for you. I mean, this meeting was a little tougher because we had the holiday on Monday. but I wanna allow for you, because I know you guys have a lot going on in the district anyway, so if your preference is to have all of your meetings in 1 week, we can do that.
I don't know, John, it's really,
I don't wanna pigeonhole you in 1 week, you know, meeting, and then.
My calendar is so variable, it's really hard to tell.
that's what I mean, it's, you know, if we put it in and we wanna do a regular meeting on the week off, that's fine, if you wanna couple it with,
Is it better scheduling for him to do that way?
his schedule is a bit of a nightmare, so it's really, we're going to just, be flexible, so honestly, Maura, if we
Okay.
put it in there, we could do the, you know, do you wanna do this time, Wednesdays, the week that we're not in? And the 4:30 time is kind of a nice start, it's not the
Yeah.
6:30 start,
Mhm.
so it's.
And it may only be a half an hour meeting, it could be an
That's what
hour
I
meeting,
mean,
I
so-
try never to make them more than 2 hours is like the max.
Mhm.
Depends on how passionate the topic is.
2 hours of policy.
Well, but when you get into talking about certain things
I
and
know, I'm
adding, so
teasing.
sometimes there is, but other than that, I try not to.
And if we could have flexibility, maybe to say, we do have that first Thursday of the month, if we could do a 4:30 start and do it before, that would
Back
be,
up, yeah.
Yeah, if you would rather than
Would you-
be back to back to the school committee meetings, that's fine.
is that easier?
It's fine with me.
Fine
Okay.
with- It's fine with us.
I know that I'm staying that night and that I don't have anything right before it, so.
Yeah, I just, again, I try to be mindful of giving you the break from the day to then
Mhm.
going into the meeting. If there's any prep you have to do
Oh,
before
no, there's no
that.
breaks.
Okay, so the next meeting will be, do you wanna try to do another one this month? To go through the harassment, or do you wanna wait and do November? What is your
It
preference?
depends if you wanna get, I guess, you had that other policy you wanted to get some of Katie's thoughts on, I think we
Yeah.
should, it's really gonna depend on her reaction to that.
Okay,
If she can get us feedback quickly, then I think we could do that.
You could do the 27th, the one we added, Maura. We
Yep.
did add, you know, we canceled the November 3rd meeting and added
Mhm.
the Thursday, the 27th. We could do
okay,
it where
so
that gives us.
tentatively, we'll set the next meeting to be, 4:30 on October 27th.
And then,
That will likely, can you, wait, so when you do the calendar, can you include Michelle in the dates, but she'll likely, it's only if Cheryl's not here?
Yes.
But at least she'll know to have it on her schedule.
she's here every night. She's good.
I know, I'm sorry.
So no, I'll add Michelle to the email.
And then if for some reason we don't, then that gives us time to put the change in between now and then.
Exactly. Gives us plenty of time to.
Okay.
And then we can do a clean copy, right, you want
Mhm.
a clean copy of that.
Mhm.
Just to make sure that like the, more for the grammar and things like that, so it's all, wish, yeah. Okay. Anything else? Any other policies that come up, by all means, feel free to email them, whether you do it through, John or any of the other members of the subcommittee. We'll try to get them to you and then we'll add them to the agenda, so I'll send you a list
Yep.
to add to the agenda as we go through.
And those two are gonna go on for first readings.
Yes,
ACA and ACAB can go on the agenda for
Mhm.
the 20th for first readings.
Mhm.
that actually works out good too, because you get two right back-to-back meetings. So you get 2 readings in October out. Cool, okay. The excitement, okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's 5:19 and we're adjourned.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Nice, very nice.